It is important to remember that you should never attack an armed intruder unless he is actively trying to kill someone. Attacking a person who is suicidal or a person whose intention is to take hostages could escalate the danger and get you or others killed.
There are very little places where an active shooter incident hasn't happened, so no place is immune.
The person that mentally rehearses this type of situation, this type of scenario, is one that's planned for survival.
Think about what I can do right now in this situation if it happens.
There is no one sure quick answer of how to deal with an active shooter on a campus. The police are responding, public safety help is coming to your assistance, but until they get there, there are a number of choices that you have to make, and only you can make those choices.
The students need to plan, prepare, and react.
No, active shooter can be anywhere. You know, you see it, it's happened in the malls, neighborhoods, campuses, high schools, middle schools. It can happen anywhere at any time.
The risk of being struck by lightning is greater than being killed by a stranger in a classroom. But the possibility of an active shooter does exist.
But he sees it as an important detail of his childhood.
What is an active shooter? And what can you do to protect yourself?
Active shooter is a gunman that's engaged in killing someone. The first thing the student must do is protect themselves. So if they're in a situation where they can hide or conceal themselves, that's what they need to do. They need to protect themselves. Then if they can, call 911, call campus police so that we can respond immediately to neutralize the threat.
You know, there's research that indicates and demonstrates that those individuals that pre-plan and plan and think about a plan of action like that are more likely to survive an emergency situation such as an active shooter.
If you were confronted with an active shooter in a classroom, what would you do?
I think I'd probably close the door and try to barricade it.
I would more than likely freeze up and lose my mind, and I wouldn't know what to do.
I would probably try and get back to my office and close and lock the door.
Get down on the floor, I guess. I don't know.
Drop to the ground. Yeah. That's about it.
I don't know what I would do.
A student has a lot on their minds. They have a tough agenda, and thinking about a shooter coming into their classroom is probably real low on their list of things to have to prepare for. So realistically, depending on the situation and a lot of training, it's a tough situation for them to have to deal with.
People ask the question of, if I were to hear terminology or I'd hear somebody discussing about having some active violence, what should I do? Is it just normal chit-chat and I really shouldn't get involved in it because it's not my business?
If you see something, say something. That's what we tell people here, and that's what every campus, every student, every faculty is going to have to do. We all have to be partners in preventing and deterring active shooter situations.
Many campuses have a behavioral threat assessment team specifically trained to respond to anyone who is a threat to themselves or others. Students and staff should not hesitate to report any threat. Call campus police, the health center, or your student affairs office.
In the type of situations that have happened over the last decade on college campuses and public schools, it's usually someone coming on campus with their focus is to shoot a targeted group of people, whether it's jocks or popular students or a single classroom, and then it turns into a random act of violence as well. It usually evolves or snowballs into a situation. Simply, the person shoots or targets whoever they want to, and then will shoot everyone they see in that classroom, in the hallway, go down a hall and find another hallway or a different residence hall room. What makes it so dynamic and tough for the police to deal with, it happens quickly.
We got some scenarios here, hopefully to be beneficial to y'all.
From television, we've become familiar with highly trained special response teams that handle desperate and prolonged violent situations. In real life, these officers are highly skilled in weaponry and tactics.
Where is he? Where is he? Into the room!
Engaging in training exercises like this one. They are trained to contain the gunman and neutralize the threat if necessary.
Show me your hand!
In an active shooter situation, a gunman kills quickly and doesn't take hostages. In this situation, the responsibility is not with SWAT, but it's with the first responders, those police men and women who arrive within minutes.
The time frame makes it extremely difficult for police to respond.
I heard gunshots. I think someone's been hurt. Please, just send an ambulance and cops.
Ideally, students want to be able to call the campus police. Knowing the campus police number is real crucial. I believe that students should program it into their phone. Why is it so important? Is because typically your campus police are more familiar with the campus. They understand the building, they understand the layout, they understand the dynamics of that campus. If you can't remember the number, of course 911 is the next best thing.
University Police, this is Macy.
Basically, the main things we want to know is where you are and what's happening. And then what's going to happen is those dispatchers, those public safety dispatchers for law enforcement agencies, are going to try to keep you on the line the whole time and use you as a conduit of intelligent information for responding officers.
I'm shooting at Peabody. I'm behind a tree right now.
Police response is immediate. Using information gathered from witnesses who call 911 and campus police, these first responders form a plan, and without delay, they move in to intercept the gunman as quickly as possible. In addition, your institution has an emergency alert system where every student, faculty, and staff member is notified using text messages, phone recordings, or other ways to communicate the danger. Not all shootings take place in the same location. It's possible that after killing in one building, the gunman could enter a second building where nobody yet knows what's about to happen.
In a hallway is an extremely dangerous situation. If the shooting is not taking place in the hallway, more than likely, after the shooter finishes in a classroom, he's going to go into the hallway or a stairwell. So it's not a good place to stay. Either get into a classroom that can be locked or just simply get out of the building and distance yourself from that building and wait for the police.
Immediately lock the door. Make it as hard as possible for that armed assailant to get into that room.
But what you have is pandemonium.
Stay calm. The door won't lock!
People screaming, gunshots going off, doors slamming, just mass confusion. The person that mentally rehearses this type of situation, this type of scenario is one that's planned for survival.
The emotional trauma that would be involved if someone barged into the room, unless they had an incredible amount of training, it's going to be a tough situation. Something that we won't, advocate for every single event, but rather than be shot, I would do something.
I think it's important that we kind of think outside the box and we start to prepare these students.
What would you do if you were put in this situation? It's something that someone has to think about in advance.
Quiet. There's a guy with a gun in the hall.
Students would be terrified, but at least think about that situation in advance. They have a fighting chance for survival.
But as that last resort, when that person enters that room, you will have a game plan and you've positioned people so that everybody can attack him from a different angle.
If you're in a room where escape is not possible, then you must try to remain calm and form a plan. Turn off the lights, lock and barricade the door. Decide what each person should do if the gunman tries to enter the room. and call the police. Use whatever you have to protect yourself. Hide behind an overturned table. Help others do the same, especially individuals with disabilities. Fill a backpack with books and wear it facing forward. It just might stop a bullet. And call police.
That is the most important thing, having a survival mentality that I am going to survive, I'm going to protect myself. If necessary, we'll barricade the door, we'll hide. If we can't hide, or if I can't hide, then I may have to be prepared to fight.
So multiple things can happen at one time. It just takes a coordinated effort. And so it takes that person to have thought about this beforehand to coordinate those efforts when they happen.
Police, drop the gun! Drop the gun, police!
819 radio, suspect is down. Repeat, suspect is down. 902 to all perimeter units, hold your position. Repeat, hold your position.
Authorities confirm 3 students have been killed here on campus. And
what I need you to do is think about, if this happens to me here, if it were to happen today, right now, what would be my options and what would I do? But if you don't think about those things ahead of time, it's going to be hard to prepare. Every time you go into a restaurant, you go into a classroom setting, if you're at a movie theater, you should be thinking, if an emergency were to occur, whether it be an active shooter, a fire, any type of emergency, what would I do that would be in the best response for my safety? But if you think that, oh, that doesn't happen here, that happens somewhere else, then you're going to find yourself at a disadvantage.
We always say to play the what-if game. Think about if you're in a particular location or what you would do in the case of an active shooter incident or any other incident, but have that planned before ahead of time on what to do.
If you're in a grocery store, be aware of the surroundings. If you're in a theater, for example, go ahead and put through your mind, well, what would I do in the event of a fire? Where are my nearest exits? What would I do in the event of an armed assailant?
When you go to a hotel, fireman told me one time, I count the doors to my room and I look at the exit. And I never thought about it. And I said, why? He says, because I prepare. I said, prepare for what? He's a fireman. He said, I prepare for a fire. He says, if a fire does occur, there's smoke, I get down low, I count the doors, and I know how far I am from that exit. That's planning. That's preparing. And that's the same thing we're talking about here, is knowing your environment, where you're at. How far is that exit? Do you know?
Our colleges and universities are the envy of the world. These are places where students learn about science, literature, history, and each other. Today's students must also learn life lessons not usually associated with higher education. Each student must ask himself questions his parents might not have asked him in many years. What would you do if your house caught fire? Where do you seek shelter if threatened with severe weather? Students should also ask themselves, what would I do if someone were shooting in my building? The answers to all these questions are the same. Think ahead and plan to survive. To summarize, remember these important points. Program your emergency number into your phone and know how to get to that number instantly without having to search your phone list. When you enter a classroom, theater, someone's home, a store, any place, take a second to notice where the exits are. Also, if you see a suspicious person or activity, report it to your campus police. If you're confronted with someone who has a knife or a gun, run away as fast as you can. Get away from danger and then call the police. If you can't get away, you should lock the door, turn off the lights, and hide. Make it look like nobody is there. And if you can do so quietly, call the police. If you're in a room that won't lock, you should use whatever you can to barricade the door so that the armed assailant cannot get in. If you're attacked, if someone's shooting people, and there's no escape, fighting back is an option. Use whatever you have to protect yourself. The odds are that this will never happen to you, but if it does, you must be ready. Plan, prepare, react.